Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Errol's Talks. We're going to give it a second to have more people. People are just starting to enter, so we'll give them another minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Errol's Talks. Today's talk will actually be presented by myself, Yia Vang. I am very happy to be here on the call with you guys today. Just welcome to the platform for those of you who have been joining us every day live. Welcome for those of you who are new, whether you're on Zoom or on YouTube or Instagram, and this is your first time, welcome to the Eros platform. The Eros platform is an amazing online education platform that really educates about orgasmic meditation and also Eros and the Eros Sutras as written by Nicole. So we've been doing a series of talks now that was initially, started by Nicole Dedone. She was doing these talks at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern as a way to really educate and transmit what orgasmic meditation is and what Eros is. And ever since her and Rachel's remand in prison, the senior staff has been keeping up with these calls as a way to continue to really transmit what Eros is, and really to keep that spirit going, and also as a way to remind people and as a way for all of us to remember what we are ultimately doing here, which is the liberation of people, especially liberation of women's sexuality. So that is what we are all here for. So a little bit about myself, for those of you that don't know me. My name is Yia Vang. I have been in the practice of orgasmic meditation for 20 years now, actually. 20 years, it was 20 years in March of this year. It's really amazing. Before I came to OneTaste, I didn't think that I would be studying or doing anything for that long. And I can definitely tell you it's been 20 years and there is still much, much, much more to learn. So a little bit about myself. I have been, in the 20 years that I've been at OneTaste, I have held various positions. From just your center manager to ultimately being the orgasmic meditation OM practitioner holder. And for those of you who took the coaching programs back in the OneTaste days, I was the main coordinator and also one of the main teachers of the practice, and also a curriculum designer for OneTaste. And so a lot of the content that you guys see here on the Eros platform has been designed by myself and a team of the teachers. And so it's interesting because a lot of people don't know me because a lot of what I do is in the background, especially since we stopped teaching the coaching programs and I'm not in the front anymore. A lot of it is in the background. And so people don't know who I am, but I am definitely one of the most senior people here on staff, along with Nicole. I've been here longer than Rachel Himsey and Rachel Pelletier, for those of you who know them. We always have a joke. Rachel Himsey always has a joke about how she's always 1 year behind me, and no matter what, she can't keep up. And so, but that's how long I've been here for. So, let's see, where I want to start today. I'll start a little bit today about, just giving you guys a little bit of a background on myself, my own story. I'll be doing a lot more events on the Eros platform, and so I thought that would be good for people to just get to know me on this call, and I'll be opening up for questions a little bit later. So, let's see. I think first off, I'll start with saying, we originally when we first started these staff calls, we called it Errol's Talks Back, because we want it to be that, when Bloomberg happened back in 2013, 2015 or so, we definitely went quiet for a period of time because we were advised that the best thing to do was actually to go in hiding, and because of that, people didn't quite know where we were and what we were doing. And so people, of course, obviously assumed that we must be guilty of the things that we were being accused of or written by about us, which is why, we went in hiding. But that was very much not the case. We definitely go dark based on some advice and stuff, but in the meantime, we created a very strong nonprofit program on conditional freedom, and the prison monastery program, which Nancy, who was here on the call, leads that. And she did a call earlier last week that you guys heard about. So there was a lot that still happened. And in light of what happened recently, with the indictment and then also the verdict with Nicole and Rachel, once again, we were like, okay, let's actually not go silent this time. And let's actually continue to push out and continue to really be strong in terms of who we are and what the message is, and really to continue to, I don't want to say the word fight, but just continue to actually be out there. One of the things that, there were many things that happened during the trial, many things that the government, accused us of, right? For those of you who've been coming to the community calls with Kevin, he's been doing some very amazing breakdown of, the trial. And one of the things that they were saying and that the witnesses were saying was that, orgasmic meditation and the philosophy and the principles, and Nicole brainwashed these, victim witnesses. And so orgasmic meditation being one of the methods in which people were brainwashed. And so I'm here to testify and to say that that is very much not the case. And one of the reasons why we were doing these talks again was to actually get our voice out there, so that we can really say that was actually not the case, and to really educate people, especially those who want to hear what we have to say about what the real truth is, and for those of you who have been with us all along the way, so that you have material for how you can speak about this when people question you guys about why you're still with this, orgasm cult that brainwashes women and makes them do what they would want to do. And so for you guys to be armed with the education to continue to, educate people and really tell them what this is about. So so that's one of the reasons why I'm also on this call too, is to really continue with that. Let's see. So in terms of myself, so I have been here for, like I said, 20 years. You guys have heard Eli's, own story earlier. I started this practice very much, when I started this practice, I was 25, just turned 25. I had graduated from UC Davis. Graduated from UC Davis. I was born and interested in sexuality, even back then when I didn't have the actual word for it. That was pretty much what I was interested in. And, in talking about this too, I'm actually working on my second book, my second memoir. I'll talk about the first one a little bit later, but I'm working on the second one. And this second one is going to be some form of, right now the working title is Confessions of a Turned On Woman. And it's going to be really like my own story as a woman, and as a woman who, like a sexual woman and a turned on woman, like what is the actual story around women who are turned on, not women who are interested in exploring and then get themselves, and then explore and then 5 years, 15 years later have regrets and then come back to say that, oh, like I didn't do that. But really, no, like what does it actually take to be a woman who have these experiences and 10 to 15 years later come back and say, yes, I had those experiences and they were amazing and they were life-changing for me. Because I can tell you a lot of these experiences were life-changing for myself, and I would assume for these women too, But it's hard to say I'm a turned on woman, I'm a sexual woman in a culture that doesn't accept that, and in a culture that actually degrades women who dare to claim their sexuality, and women who dare to stand up for women's sexuality, women's power and liberation. One of the things that a lot of us got, that I can just say for myself personally after the trial, was, you really get to see, wow, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in educating the world about women's sexuality. We have a lot of work to do in educating women, and in a sense, letting them know that they're not victims of their circumstances, you know, and that they actually have the power. That's like the work that Nicole started off with. And it's been 20 years. And after the end of that courtroom verdict, you know, I was like, wow, we've done 20 years of work and there's still 20 more years, 40 more years, 60 more years of work to go. And my hope and my wish is that we actually see that within my lifetime, and that we actually do see women owning their sexual power and being, you know, creators of their sexual power, and not in a way that combats the masculine structure, and not in the way that goes against men in the masculine structure, but, you know, so much so of women actually being in their power that they can, you know, really take on their position of being the creators and being the ones to steer and to love men and the masculine, and really be able to extract from the masculine their true gifts are, and that is of service, you know, and devotion, and to really be able to plug that into a liberation for all people and not just for self-serving purposes. So that's my own personal goal that I hope that I'm here to see. So anyways, so in the midst of this, you know, memoir that I'm starting to write came about from the trial, and just really my own account of what happened. You know, my own account of the earlier days of OneTaste, my own account of what I saw and witnessed with these women who were there back then, and, you know, a lot of other women and men who either speak out or didn't speak out, or were against or for, or silent witnesses and whatnot. And so I think that a lot of that is needed in this time. So that's what I'm working on in the background. And so, you know, back to my own story, you know, one of the confessions I have, it's interesting because whenever you hear of a woman who is sexually, you know, in her body and sexual, a lot of the stigma and stereotypes that we get are that, oh, like she's probably broken, right? Like she has low self-esteem. For a woman to really, you know, own her sexuality and have sex, whether or not she's having a lot of sex, there's often this stigma and this label of like a woman having come from a broken family, having been molested or raped, or having experienced some sort of sexual trauma. You know, there's always some sort of cover story about why, to explain why she is the way she is. And that often comes from this model of, you know, women being incapable, being broken, being, you know, not able to like care for themselves and own their sexuality. And so that's one of the myths. And it's interesting because I've been doing my own research about women's sexuality, and a lot of the books that I've seen of women coming out and talking about their sexuality also comes from that. Oh, like, you know, like I was molested when I was young, and this is why, this explains this. Or, you know, I have low self-esteem, and so until I can find a man, you know, I have low self-esteem. It's always some sort of angle. And I'm not saying that those don't happen, because they very much do happen. You know, I'm not diminishing that at all. But I am one to say that, no, I'm a sexual woman because I was born sexual. You know, because I can remember at the age of 4, having an experience around my sexuality with, you know, with a cousin, you know, girl cousin in the bathtub, and the both of us being turned on and exploring our body and already exploring our pleasure, you know, like, so it is not from something was broken or something happened, but it was very much like, no, I was born this way. And I think that it's okay for women to say I was born this way, and I had experiences when I was young, and whether or not I had the ego structure to understand those experiences, they were significant, and they were significant in shaping who I am, you know, and this is who I am today. And in a way that actually embraces those experiences in terms of like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it makes sense that when I was 4 years old, this happened. It makes sense that when I was, you know, maybe even 3 or 4, that I had this experience, you know. And so it's not in the way of where it was being done to me, but that, no, like there was a deeper intelligence in my body, you know, a sexual creative energy in my body that was actually drawing me towards these experiences. And I think that more women can actually speak out in that sense, you know, and I'm one to do that. And so one of the confessions is, the first confession is, I was born this way. I was born a sexual woman. I'm not a sexual woman because something happened to me. I'm a sexual woman because I was born this way, and I have a certain kind of awareness. And along the journey of my life, it led me to OneTaste, and it led me to Orgasmic Meditation, and it led me to Eros. There's a through line within my life. And that's not to say that I haven't had negative experiences in the past. I think that when it comes to sex and sexuality, there's always experiences that we have, of as a woman having sex and not being able to say, oh, like, could you move a little to the left, or not being able to say, I think I'm done now, there's all of these that's been trained in women in terms of how to speak about sexuality, because we haven't had the training to. So I too, as a sexual woman, have these experiences of just being able to say to my partner, could you slow down a little bit? I have that too. Like I have I don't want to tell him to stop because I don't want to hurt his feelings. But it's not because something is being done to me. That's just because in that moment I lack the facility and the just the power to be able to say, could you slow down a little bit, or can we stop now? And so to be able to own these experiences as my own and as part of the journey that I'm on as a sexual woman, in a culture that doesn't allow space for women to be able to have these experiences and be able to talk about them openly and have it be okay, in the same way that on the male side, like men have to know what they're doing, so they watch porn, read magazines, watch porn, are taught a certain way in terms of like how to do certain things and how to perform. And if they don't know, then it's, there's a stigma around men having to be able to say, like, I actually don't know how you want to be touched. Could you show me, like, is this where the clitoris is? When I started the orgasmic meditation practice and started training, there were a lot of men who actually were not able to locate the clitoris and locate the 1 o'clock spot. Not because they're dumb or don't know, but just because there's really been no training around that, And it's so taboo for men to talk about it that they are often left in the dark in terms of what to do, and then women are often left in the dark in terms of how to approvingly guide their partner on how to and on where to touch them. And so that's one of the confessions in the book. There are many, many others. Just to give you guys a sneak peek, one of them will probably be something. One of them will probably be something like, my confession is, I am that woman. I am the other woman. And there's a stigma that women get around being the other women, right? Like women who steals married men's women have like low self-esteem and don't care about the other women. But I, as a woman who embraces her sexuality, I come at it from a very different perspective. And it's more of like, no, like I can actually contribute to your relationship. Like I'm not here to steal your man. I'm not here to, take him. I'm here to actually add, if you want, if you want him, I'm here to add to your relationship. I'm here to add, pour energy onto him so that he can bring it home to you, because you're the woman. And so, that's another part of my history, because I have been in that position before. So those are just some of the, quick snippets in terms of confessions and stuff that I have. As a woman who is sexually turned on woman. And so that's the book. All of that contributed to, I would say, my journey here with orgasmic meditation. I found orgasmic meditation in 2005. Like I said, when I was 25, I had graduated from college. I was very much, it's funny because I was at that period of wanting to explore more spirituality, right? Like it was 2005, San Francisco was booming as a sexually liberated community, city. People were headed towards to San Francisco to explore, free love, explore their sexuality, explore BDSM, explore all of these communities and stuff that were open to sexuality. And so I came to San Francisco with that hunger. Because growing up from an Asian community, we definitely don't touch sexuality in the community that I grew up in. It was very much taboo. I think that's the case in a lot of communities, and especially for women, not just the Asian community, but there is a certain stereotype around Asian women and sexuality. And so it was very much not talked about and very taboo. And so there was this hunger that I had to explore, to just know, to touch, like this live wire or this fire that I've always felt in myself. And so when I was in high school, I learned about meditation, and I didn't practice meditation, but I heard about meditation as a way to really be able to be internal and not control, but like just be more in your body. And so I heard about that, and that was, sparked my interest. And then I was also very much interested in sexuality. Out of all of my friends, I think a lot of us on this call, out of all of our friends, we are the non-conventional one. We're like the rebel, the black sheep of our friends. We're the misfit, the one that doesn't quite fit in. I didn't do laces and purses and makeup like my girlfriends did. I was more interested in sexuality and different types of conversation. And so I think a lot of us can say that that's the case for us. And so I was very much interested in sexuality. And I remember in my junior year in high school, my friends, we started passing around this book by Patty Davis called Bondage. And it was the first book that I ever read. Well, other than the romance novels that I read in middle school, it was the first book that I actually read that was about, it's bondage, right? So that's about like power play. That's about more psychological aspects of sexuality too, because romance novels are a whole different thing. But this actually piqued my interest in terms of like, oh wow, like people actually can be conscious around sexuality, and can actually learn how to use the sexual energy for different things. And so that just like piqued my interest. And so then, I knew that I was very much interested in that. And so, which is why I chose San Francisco to come to. So when I came to San Francisco, I definitely got into, I started meeting people. I started meeting people who were from different communities, more conscious communities, as they called them, who explored spirituality, but then also sexuality, just like more intimate community and such. And so I became interested in that, and I met somebody who then told me about OneTaste, about Nicole, about Rob. They're like, oh, like if this is what you're interested in, you should definitely check out this place called OneTaste, And it took me a minute to actually check it out. During that time, I also got into a series of events, that had me end up going to see my gynecologist. And I did my usual pap smear, and then learned that I had cervical dysplasia. And that I had to, they had to remove 1/8 of my cervix, the parts of the cells that were cancerous. And so that was really my wake-up call in terms of really starting to pay attention to my body and starting to pay attention to my sexuality, and what is it telling me? And like I said, like I was born with this thing. I just didn't know how to put attention on it. And I also come from a shaman background. I'm Hmong, and the lineage is shamanism. And in shamanism, the belief is that anything that happens to your body is a spiritual or is a spiritual sign. It's a sign that there is something on the more spiritual basis that needs your attention. And so I already come from that background. And so when when I had a cervical dysplasia, for me, it was a very clear sign that it is now time to put my attention on my body and on my sexuality, and actually to see what it needs, and not just, have my usual one-night stands or getting involved with people that I wasn't really involved, like emotionally involved with or intimately involved with. And so that was my sign. And it's a kismet situation, because this was happening, and right when this was happening, people were telling me about OneTaste. And so when I came to OneTaste, I was very ready to come to OneTaste. I was very ready to actually explore my sexuality. And however, for those of you who are on the call listening in, however, whatever your journey is in terms of how you got here, I think that there's some element of I want to actually put some attention on my sexuality, on my intimacy, on my connection, to something more, something deeper that I can feel. And that was my calling, and that was how I came in through the door. So when I came in through the door, I came to, back then, what was called an in-group. Now it's called a turn-on, for those of you who've been to a turn-on. I believe we're going to start online turn-ons pretty soon. For those of you who've never experienced a turn-on before, I think that we're going to start doing them online. For those of you who are in New York, we're also currently doing them in New York. So if you're in New York, you can always drop by for a turn-on. But I came to my first event, and that's where I met Nicole, and I met Rob, and I met the team at the time. And I do have to say that, when I first came in, it was more of the felt sense that drew me in much more than what Nicole was saying, even though what she was saying totally makes sense. Now, it didn't make sense cognitively, but it made sense bodily, if that makes sense to you guys. Like the things that she was saying, I felt like I was able to exhale for the first time, So there was something about what she was saying that actually spoke to me, that actually felt true. And this is the interesting part, because I was in those courtrooms for some of those witness testimonies, and they said they were brainwashed from day one. I can tell you they were not brainwashed and made to sign up for any courses. If anything, a layer actually came off, and I actually felt something, and I actually felt like what I have always felt to be true is available, from what she was talking about. It wasn't until maybe, a few weeks later that I took my first course. I took my own course, and saw a demonstration. Actually, I take that back. My first introduction to orgasmic meditation was not through a course. It was actually through seeing a demo. For some of you, you saw a demo first, and then you took a course. For some of you, you took the course, and then you saw the demo in the course. For me, at that time, they were doing a demo of a woman in orgasm, oming, or woman in orgasm for an hour, and that was my first introduction to the practice. Prior to that, I had no idea what oming was. I don't even remember if we talked about oming in the group at all. And when I saw that demonstration, I felt it. I was a person who didn't feel much, and who didn't know how to articulate my insides, and could barely articulate that, I feel a tingling in my fingertip. I was somebody who didn't know how to articulate these bodily based sensations, to watching this demonstration and being hit with the wave that I could not outrun. I was hit with this blast of emotion and feeling and sensation that had me held onto my chair and screamed out, "Holy shit!" and then just screamed the rest of the way with the woman who was doing the demonstration. I felt like we were both feeling the same thing. And so I had that mystical experience. And then after that mystical experience, I was just like, this is amazing. This is freaking amazing. And so then I took my first course, and I got to admit, when I took my first course and I had my first OM, I didn't feel a lot. I wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to feel. I knew that there was something there, but I wasn't quite sure. And it was hard for me to actually feel, because now I'm actually having to tap into the feelings, and it took me a while to actually be able to really sink into my body. I knew how to perform. I definitely knew how to perform feeling. And I came from also, look good is in my bag, of self-management and looking good. And so I always had to know what I was doing, like looked like I knew what I was doing, even though I didn't know what I was doing, pretended that I knew what I was doing. And so all of that were layers that I had to strip away in order to be able to just to feel my body. So it was many years of, looking like I knew what I was feeling to actually being able to feel, oh wow, like this is what they're talking about. Like this is what a feeling actually feels like. And then from there, it was just progressively, getting more into my body, but really falling in love with the practice and doing everything I knew around the practice to own every day, and to not just own, but to steady it. And really, when I say steady, it's, that word is kind of funny. When I say steady, it's really, I had Nicole as a teacher, I had Ken Blackman as a teacher. There were women who came before me who I learned from, but ultimately the studying came from studying my own body, researching my own body, researching my own orgasm, using the own practice as a referent for being able to speak, for being able to hear in my mind, a little bit to the left. I think I want him to go a little bit to the left. And then really studying that. Like, I'm thinking, go a little to the left, but I'm not saying it. Like, why am I not saying, just go a little to the left, And then it's like, oh, like, I don't want to hurt his feelings. Am I right? Like, and that's a big woman one is, am I right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is doing it right. Maybe I just need to get off a little more. And that's a really big woman one. It's all like, maybe I'm not doing enough. I'm not feeling it right. So I can't say this. And I look for all of these different ways to beat myself up, in a sense of like, oh, the problem is me, not my stroker. And so, and these were things I had to, when I talk about studying OM, these were the things I had to study. I researched it. Like, what is the thing underneath that? Oh, it's because I feel I'm not worthy. I feel I'm not worthy to just say, could you move a little to the left? I have doubt. I feel like I'm not somebody who knows things. So then I'm always having to look for other people to tell me what to do, and for other people to direct me. But I'm having to learn, oh no, like I actually do know what to do. I actually do have the answer. And so then being able to come back to that, and then being able to say, would you move a little to the left? And then being able to do it without the judgment of the stroker, of the man, without thinking that he's an idiot. And believe me, I have a lot of those too. He's an idiot. Why can't he just do it? A little bit to the left. And then again, could you move a little bit to the left? Good Lord, could you just move a little bit to the left? A little less pressure. It's like being able to actually tune into these things and know that, no, the reason why I'm irritated right now is because I haven't said it, because I didn't say it the first time I heard it. And I've waited 5 minutes later, and now I'm irritated. And so then now I'm saying, could you move a little to the left, in a way that is irritated. So then he thinks that he's doing it wrong when he wasn't the one doing it wrong. I just haven't said, could you move a little to the left? And so I didn't say, it's not that like he's having more sex than I want to have. It's like, no, I just didn't say, you know what? I think I'm done. Can we pause? And to actually be a friend in that moment, and to just say that, and a lot of the women who came through, the victim witnesses, were saying, oh, a lot of them, when they were questioned, like, did you tell them that? Did you tell Nicole and Rachel you didn't want to do it? Oh, no, I didn't, And so, or one of them that actually say, yeah, I did tell them. Well, what did Nicole do when you told her that? Oh, she stopped. She said, okay. You know what I mean? And so there's all of these things that like women do to, instead of being like, oh, you know what? Like, I just didn't say, you know what? I think I'm done. I just didn't say, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. Or not even, I don't think, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable doing that. You know what? That sounds intriguing. Could you tell me a little bit more what that entails? Like what would that require of me? Like, oh, like here's what I can do, here's what I'm willing to offer, and here's what I'm not able to do, and here's what my boundaries are, or that sounds interesting, I might not be able to do it right now, but I can come back to it a little bit later, or let me actually do what I need to do to get myself in a position where I can actually say fully yes and own that, and not just own that, but like 10 years later, don't come back and say, well, gee, you told me to do this. But and so it's like a lot of this is really, this is what it means for a woman to own her sexuality, is to be able to 10 years later say, I had an amazing experience, I learned a lot from that experience, I learned how to speak up from that experience, I learned my boundaries from that experience. I learned that if I'm uncomfortable with something, that I can say it, and it's actually okay for me to say that. It's I learned that it's okay for me to say no and then feel awkward and feel like I'm being left out, but still know that I'm loved. And saying no is a perfectly okay answer. Some of these women were saying, oh, they say yes because they didn't want to feel left out, or they didn't want to be like kicked out. And it's kind of funny that they didn't want to be kicked out of a cult that they were being brainwashed in. I don't even know that logic. Anyways, I'm not going to go on a tangent there. But a lot of this is just how can we actually just take more responsibility, not just take our responsibility, but how do I honor the person that I was 10 years ago, and like get the gifts from that, so that I can be the woman that I am today and not continue to be some victimized version of, just some victimized version. They were not even a victim 10 years ago, but just some sort of victim now. And that's the identity that I now have to hold. A woman who is incapable of speaking her desires and owning what she wants. So, anyways, so I don't even know where to go from here. So, anyways, that's my journey. And so, one of the things that I learned a lot about is that's what I learned a lot about. And here's the thing too, is that it does continue to be a journey. Every day I wake up, every day, it's a journey. It is still, I'm a little thirsty. Hey, Leah, can you make me tea? Every day it's the same. Bob, this tea is a little bit too sweet. Can you make me another one with a little bit less sugar? Instead of like, oh gosh, I can't, I don't want to hurt his feelings, so I can't say it, right? But it's every day, it's continuing being able to say that, and to do it with grace, and to do it with knowing that I have a right to say it. I have a right to ask for it in a way that I want it, not in a way that's entitled, but in the way that like I then get to receive fully what my desire is, and that I get to fully emanate the joy of receiving that desire, and then making others succeed around me. So one of the other things with my journey with OneTaste is a lot of it has also and with oming, is that it made me who I am, in terms of like, oh no, this has always been who I am. This is the blueprint that's been in here, and Orgasmic Meditation and Eros ignited that blueprint, and then all of these different parts get to come out. So it's not so much about becoming somebody different, it's becoming exactly who you are and who you are meant to be. And for me, one of those things was in my relationship with my mom, which is really my relationship with the feminine, because growing up, I had a very stigmatized idea of what the feminine is, and I rejected everything about my mom, who was a very feminine being. And so when I became right with myself and my feminine, I was able to connect with my mom as a woman, and not as a mother who needed to provide certain things for me, but I am now in the position of actually being, in a sense, her, not her caregiver, because I'm not with her and not taking care of her all the time, but like her guide to having her own desires come out, and what she wants, and how does she want to live the next few years of her life, and being able to provide that, and being in service to that. And so in the process, I wrote a book with my mom, in the sense that like I took the stories that she was telling me and wrote a memoir that was a lot based on my relationship with her, but also how I came to be, the woman that I am because of who she is. And it's also a large part her story. and who she is as a woman, as a feminine woman, and her name and the meaning of her name, and why it's important for her name, for people to know her name, for America to know her name. That's really symbolic of the importance of a woman to know her own identity, and to be able to actually live that and embody that and be loud about it. So that's all I'll say for now. We can open it up to questions. We can take questions at this time. If you have a question, or reflections are fine too. Go ahead and raise your virtual hand. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Marla. Hi, Marla. And then David, I see you too, so I'll get you after Marla.
Hi, yeah, I'm driving, so I'm not on camera, but I just loved how much transparency you spoke with. And my question is, I mean, I kind of know this answer already, but like, you've been someone I've gone to when I have trouble working with my own mind and get stuck around something. And I feel like thanks to like the sisterhood and the beauty of like trust that we've built together, I can come to you with that. What would you say to women who are just learning how to trust other women and how to build those friendships that they might not have yet?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, Marla. That's a really good question, and I'll just say, like, it took a long time for me to trust women. When I first came to OneTaste, there were the women and then there were the men. And for a long while, I was with the men more than I was with the women. There was I was definitely more with the men than the women. Because here's the thing is that it's easier for me to play my games with the men than it is to play my games with the women. Because as women, we all know our games. We know each other's games. And so one of the things for me in terms of building the trust with the women was ultimately what it boiled down to was me learning how to give up my games. I knew that if I was going to talk to a sister, I was going to have to give up my game. I would have to talk to her straight. I would have to be honest. And there are times when I'm not honest, and there are times when they colluded with me too, and there are times when they didn't collude with me. But ultimately, it's more about, for me, it was like, okay, these women have been here longer than I have. They have a certain radiance that I am, that I want. It's funny because I was talking to my sister when in the midst of writing the book, I was talking to my sister about my dad, because my dad is also another component of my journey. And there's at some point I'll write his book. But my sister told me that one of the things that he said to her was, if you want to be somebody in the world, you look for the people who emanate that, and you do what they do. You come to know them and do what they do. And I think for me, it's kind of the same thing. It's like if you see somebody who you admire in the world and they have, I mean, we all have good qualities and we all have bad qualities. But like take what will help you. Take what will actually help you be the person you want to be. And practice that. And I say practice because it's a practice to be generous. It's a practice to be kind. It's a practice to tell the truth. It's a practice to be vulnerable. It's a practice to surrender. It is not something that you do it and get right every day. It's something that you come back to again and again and again. And you're going to make tremendous mistakes. And then you're going to come to make amends for those mistakes and learn from those mistakes. For me, with my sisters and with the women, the most intimate moments are always when I come back and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Or you know what, like I was trying to sabotage you there because I got jealous. And I don't want to be that person. Those are always the more intimate moments with me for women, is when I recognize what I did, what I said, my part in it, and I come back and actually make those reparations and connections.
Thank you so much, Yia.
Thank you, Marla. I love you. Okay, David.
I'm a ghostwriter and an editor. I edited the whole of the sutras at the beginning. I
Yes.
went through the whole thing a long time ago now. Um, I've written 2 books. I've edited and ghosted parts of books for 2 authors talk about testosterone being what drives sexuality. I wanted to know what is it that drives it in women, because a man can have as much as 20 times more testosterone than a woman does.
Hmm. Hmm.
Can you comment on that?
That's a good question, David. That's a good question. I don't have the knowledge in the science part, but I can just say that as a woman, our sex drive is the creative impulse. The creative impulse and the sex drive, sex impulse go hand in hand. And I think that women are very sexual creature because we're creators, mothers, women, we birth children.
Yeah.
We take care of children. We have that natural instinct to care and to nurture and to create. We're either creating babies or we're creating purpose, and such. And so I think that that's the driving force for women in terms of sexuality. Sexuality is an expression. Sex is an expression of creation, and so because my experience with sex is when I'm really in that experience of sex, it's like access to, like I said earlier, it's like access to the mystical state, right? You have access to this experience of oneness with the person that you're with and with the universe. And so I think that that's what drives women towards sexuality. So it's not so much, I think with men, it can definitely be, like production oriented or a drive to, I don't know, like you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like produce and conquer or like get a seed out there. For the women, it's the same thing. It's like that creative expression. It's like getting that creativity out there, getting her full creative expression out there.
So, what would you say then to women who don't have much sexual desire?
Women very much have sexual desire. I think that it's just been repressed. I think that, again, like I said, the reason why it's been repressed is because of all of the stigma that we put behind sex and what it is. And it's also women have been trained to emulate the masculine model of sexuality, of like what looks good and feels good and not the feminine based sexuality. It's very different. So I think that as women, because I'm the same way, I can say this because I'm the same way. Like when I first came in, I was much more masculine driven. It took me a long time to actually soften with myself, to get soft with myself, get soft with my body, get soft with my desire, be okay with, asking someone for something. And so it does take work, but it can be done. It can be done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's a beautiful question. Russell, hi.
Hi. Um, I'm just playing with words and dispositions in it. This could be fun. So maybe just I have a whole bunch of stuff, but anyway, make a distinction between making a request and inviting, and maybe just minor discernment between invitation and seduction
Between invitation and seduction. Oh, I don't even.
versus making a request, like move to the left, or like, wouldn't it be better, or wouldn't
Ah.
you like to be my favorite stroker because you moved to the left? I mean, something like that.
Are you
Just
talking specifically about oming?
not specifically, but I'm just was working with like the difference between like penetration and testosterone and you know conceiving what would be a great thing to be in the world and estrogen or something. And I just was like, have some free time to just explore those words and those dispositions in people or in you specifically. Let's do that. Make it specific.
Oh, wow.
Or just say thanks a lot, Russell. We'll move on.
Your question got really broad.
Yeah, no, well, because I'm not okay. Something specific. Um, okay, just do that. What's the difference between invitation and seduction? Just do that.
Invitation and seduction.
You seem to charge when I said that.
Wow. That's a what's a what's the difference between invitation and seduction? Um, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a, I can just speak to you from my perspective. This is not anybody else's. I speak for myself. Invitation and seduction. I think that they're both, I think they're one and the same. I think in invitation, when I think about seduction, I think about a certain, when I think about seduction, I think about a certain dance that happens between two people. um, that there's a connection, a consent of like I want to engage with this I want to engage with this person. The invitation would be the invitation would be when you're not sure, if somebody do want to engage, and you're
That's very interesting.
inviting them. You're like, would you like to do this? Would you like to own, right? They say yes or no. The seduction piece would be after the initiation has happened, and you're now conscious of the energy that exists between the both of you a little bit more consciously, and you're playing with that energy. How's that?
I'll take it.
Okay, thank you. That was a playful question. Thanks, Russell. Matthias.
Hey, yeah, how are you?
Hey, good. Good to engage with you directly.
Awesome. Thank you. Likewise, I've got a reflection for you.
Yes.
Okay. I've always been that woman, suffused with Eros from the start. A holy curiosity I don't regret, a creativity that cannot be denied. With mystical states, I harmonize and align my stories with the divine. A feminine approach, a softening of desire,
Mm.
a lifetime of courage to ask for what I really want, that I know will make the world come alive.
Wow. Oh, that's a good one. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Would you mind sending that to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. You can just pop it in the chat and Hannah will capture it for me, or that'd be amazing. Thank you. Okay, and then let's see, we have a question from Instagram. There is somebody who wanted to know how are we able to join this practice now? Amazing. Katie from Instagram, you can definitely join it on the Eros platform. For the person who, I think Luca's doing Instagram, go ahead and put the Eros platform link on there. We have a online course that is coming up pretty soon. Oh gosh, I don't have that date. When's the online course, Janet? Do you remember?
Saturday, July 19th.
July 19th, thank you. July 19th, Katie, on July 19th, we do have an online course that you are welcome to register for on the platform. Luca will go ahead and give you that link. And then if you can't do a course on the platform, we do have the OWN course that you can just take. It's the OWN Principles and Technique course. That is the foundation course. You can take that online course and learn how to OWN at your leisure. And then all you need is a partner. And you can start practicing. Okay, let's see. I think that is it. I believe that is all the questions we have. Okay, are there any other, we'll close it up with any more reflections. Anybody else have any reflections or comments before I wrap up the call?
I do. I'm raising my physical hand, sorry. I just appreciate hearing your story, even though I've known you for so long, and hearing it fresh. And then I didn't know the thing about the cancer part of I don't, and so that was really vulnerable and sweet and honest for you to share. And I didn't know that that's really what woke you up to the importance of your body. And then I love what you shared about, like I can be that woman who makes her relationship better, you know, and how you're really like there's a fearlessness and a voraciousness, which you share the message of Eros unapologetically. And I really, really, really love that flavor. And I'm so glad that you're coming out more on the platform. So yeah.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you. Okay, anybody else can go ahead and raise your virtual hand, or you can just pop on if you're not quite sure how to raise your virtual hand. Okay, perfect. All right, this is a good spot to peak it. Again, thank you guys very much for joining me today. Tomorrow, we have Eli is going to be on the platform tomorrow, same time, and then on Friday, join us with Emmett. And we will see you guys tomorrow on the Eros Talk. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Bye-bye.